Around March of 2024, I went to watch Dune Part 2 with my friend Reaper. I loved the first one but couldn't see it in theaters because of the pandemic at the time, so being able to for the second one was an amazing feeling. Once I left the theater, however, I was fundamentally changed as a person forever. So much so that it took me almost a year's worth of time to conceive the words that could encapsulate how I felt about this movie. Nah, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to gather my thoughts before I made this video. Unfortunately though, I did get sidetracked throughout the year, so I didn't get to it until now. But no time like the present, right? After having rewatched the first movie for the 5th time and the second one for the 3rd time, I thought it was finally time for me to talk about. Before I get into my thoughts for Dune 2, I did want to shine some light on its predecessor for a moment. I did make a video on the first one, but it's outdated, so I at least want to give like a little primer before talking about the sequel in this video. After having rewatched it in preparation for this video, I can say that my opinion of the movie hasn't changed much at all. This movie was one of the catalysts for sparking my love for science fiction. The world building, the music, the setting, the ambiance, everything to be honest. It invites my imagination to wander the vast world that it's built. A lot of love and care was put into making this movie. I haven't read the novels, so I can't speak as to how well they were adapted, but I can say that the movie did an amazing job in immersing me in the world and its politics. While the movie goes to great lengths to make sure you understand what's happening, a lot of it is left a mystery by the end of it. The visions, the Fremen, the off-world politics, and the Emperor aren't explained until the sequel comes around. Which honestly I prefer because that mystery leaves intrigue for what's to come next. But it isn't perfect. I enjoyed this movie a lot when it came out, but realistically, it is a prologue. It takes its time getting you acquainted with everything you need to know, but that comes at the cost of being a slow burn and a half. There's a huge battle during the middle, but the beginning and last acts are mainly exposition and setup for the sequel. I don't mind it, and to this day I still don't, but the pacing for this movie isn't for everybody. Some will find it boring, some won't like the ending, and some won't like the long runtime. That's all fair because this movie isn't the most accessible, but I still believe that it holds up almost 4 years later. I love it and hold it near and dear to my heart. It's an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10 for me, and the sequel only made it better. Let me give a quick synopsis to this movie for the sake of context. After the Harkonnen and the Sardaukar attacked House Atreides on Arrakis, Paul and Jessica joined the Fremen. With the spice giving him more potent visions, Paul is trying to integrate into the village. Not to become the Lisan al-Gaib, but to avoid it actually. His mom, however, is forced to become the Reverend Mother of Arrakis. This ritual severely affected her and her baby, so now Paul is being forced into the Lisan al-Gaib role as the days pass. We see Paul become Fremen by him making an attempt to learn their ways. We meet Shani and see the budding romance between her and Paul. The Fremen, however, are falling to fanaticism due to Jessica stoking the flames of the Messiah. Paul goes to perform the ritual of drinking sandworm's blood once the visions win him over. They push him to chase the role of the Messiah along with the voice of his mother behind him. This changes him completely and marks the difference between Paul Atreides and the Lisan al-Gaib. The rest of the movie is Paul getting his revenge on the Harkonnen and the Emperor. Paul swiftly handles the invasion with him claiming the throne after a duel against Feyd-Rautha, the chosen champion by the Emperor. Once the other houses make it to Arrakis, they refuse his ascendancy, which leads us to the end of the movie. I'm sorry for the reductive summary, but I recommend watching it for a better and uncompromised experience. As for the movie itself, I really enjoyed it. I dare say I enjoyed it even more than the first. To harken back to my comparison, this movie is the main game after the first one was the prologue. Seeing Paul learn Fremen ways and become one of them was him playing the game after the world just massively opened up. The ending of course was the best part, but the rest of the movie was still fun to watch even on a rewatch. Paul getting acclimated to the culture, seeing Jessica basically form a cult, Chani's rising and falling in love for Paul, and seeing the off-board politics all made an interesting pot of storytelling soup. One important facet of this movie was the fanaticism of the Messiah. Seeing the gradual change of the Fremen was conflicting. It united the groups against Paul's enemies and helped them reclaim the planet, but it was so eerie and almost cult-like all throughout it. At a certain point, it went from respect to reverence, but it couldn't have been possible without the figurehead himself, Paul Muad'Dib Usul Atreides. Paul is so much better here than the first one. While I didn't mention it in the recap, Paul in the first movie was kind of bland. He only really showed emotion on occasion and didn't really separate himself as the lead role. Of course, you knew he was the lead role because he had the most focus, but he wasn't the main character yet. Part of this was because he was young, confused, and naive. But even before the fall of House Atreides, I feel like there could have been more done for his character. But the sequel fixes this. Paul has so much more character here. He has personality and charisma. I can see why the Fremen would follow him now. Timothée Chalamet gave Paul life, especially during the latter half of the film. In my opinion, this movie delivered, and I can say I feel satisfied with what happened. I personally don't have any complaints, but for the average viewer, if you don't like the first one, you'll like this one more, but you'll probably still find problems with the pacing and the runtime. I give this one a 9 out of 10. I have full faith in the third movie's success, so 2026 can't come any sooner. Anyways, thank you all for watching as always. I've been putting off this video for forever now, so I'm happy to be able to follow through and finally finish it. I have a lot of ideas I want to execute this year, so I hope you all stick around to see them through. But then again, your viewership is more than enough. I want to thank you all for, all the love recently on these videos. It's been crazy to see. 2025 has been an insane start. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And as always, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
This study hard, man. This is called